Hey, welcome back to the exciting show of YOML, Year of Metrical Learning. Today I'm in a different scene. I'm actually on vacations in Destin, Florida. So, but today we're talking about the laws, and there's a lot of laws we tangible.
Yeah. So I think everybody may have read this one on this call today. Snow, did you read 48 Laws of Power?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And True, I think you did too, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, awesome. Well, this will be a fun conversation then, because we all three have read this one, so you guys can share your own reflections on it as well after I share mine. So, Snow, you want to introduce the book, kind of what it's about?
Well, from my recollection, my overall reflection is he looks at the lens of the world as a zero-sum game. And if it's a zero-sum game, how are you going to rise to the top? A lot of times he ends up giving stories and situations of people, how they used certain laws and certain tactics, like a lot of times social skills to rise to the top, or they use certain skills because they didn't follow rules, they fell and weren't able to be so great. But it was really because it was like almost looking at it in the context of the laws of power help you get up in, let's say, a realm that's a zero-sum game. I think it's an interesting difference to look at it than say like, hey, let's not look at things as like a zero-sum game. But one thing he always constantly looks at is like sort of in a court, if like let's say there's someone in power, how do you end up like the first law I think is
it's on the book cover here.
Never outshine your master.
Never outshine the master.
Anyway, it's an interesting book, and I think a lot of the psychology is true. And anyway, I want to just hear what we all have to say about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good synopsis. I mean, I totally agree. That's how I felt when I read this book as well. Actually, this book, if you think of the polarity of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie and 48 Laws of Power, I feel like they're both based on the same principles of listening to people, understanding human nature, understanding psychology, and interacting with people. One of them is used for good, of winning friends and influencing people. The other one is also to win as well, but
They win some
it's
people.
just for
People have a
reasons.
different. Well, it's all. I think the laws are the same from the both books perspectives. It's just that how you
Right.
say it and how you present it.
Right. It can be used for good or it can be used for bad. So we were just talking about that with the Packin app. It could be used for good, could be used for bad. In my personal opinion, like the 48 Laws of Power, the reflection title I wrote on this one is I only need to follow one law to feel powerful every day. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I started off this reflection by saying consume does have a powerful effect on your thoughts and how you interact with the world. We talked about it in a reflection in the past, but thoughts really do become things. When I was reading this book, I felt disgusting. I felt gross. I felt like a bad human being reading this book. I felt like I don't want to know this stuff and I don't want to learn this stuff. I felt bad reading the book. Did you guys feel that at all?
No, it's just you.
I mean, I don't know. Like I felt I could physically feel the disposition in me changing over it took me about 2 weeks to finish this book. And it was like, I mean, I was just like, I felt just angry at the end of it. I was like, man, like we suck. Juxtapose that to like reading a Humankind book. After I read that one, I was like, man, humans are pretty awesome. I'm like, we're good. It's a hopeful history, we're innately good. And then reading 48 Laws of Power, you're like, man, we just suck. Anyway, it really did viscerally come out of me feeling that way. As we just talked about at its core, this book takes a deep dive into how humans interact, connect, and build relationships and influence one another. And you can do it for good stuff or you can do it for bad stuff. So for me, what this book made me think about as I kept going on with writing this reflection the morning I was writing this one is how do you kind of through all the noise of, there's a lot of people that are going to tell you, hey, use this for good, like in How to Win Friends and Influence People. Use this for bad, like in, 48 Laws of Power, or use it for whatever. But we've talked about this so many different times about hearing outside influence voices and having that shape your outlook on things and how you interact with the world. And for us in this whole entire journey, this has been about the exact opposite of that, of kind of blocking out the noise. And that's why I wrote the reflection title. I only really need like one law to follow every single day. That's following my values personally. Like, I mean, I don't care what's going on. Like, I don't care if you put me in a situation where, I'm in a court or whatever, like I'm going to always do I'm going to consult my guide, my values, my purpose, my mission, whatever it may be. And if that tells me to go do that, then that's what I'm going to follow. I don't care about trying to figure out, like, that's one of the things about this book. There's so many scenarios of like, how do you do this or do that when somebody does this? How do you play this game? Like, it's just too much for me to focus on. So like, I'm just going to do one thing every single day that I can do, that I know that I can control, and I will feel good about the outcome, no matter what the hell everybody else does around me. And that's following my values every single day. Love to get your guys' thoughts on that in general. Like, you know, the question I posed at the end of this was, how do you shield yourself from outside influencers and stay true to yourself? Love to get your thoughts on the book in general.
I think seriously, it definitely just shows one thing your conversation made me think of is how malleable I am and how malleable we all are about what we consume and how we can end up kind of becoming like that. I mean, our brains are wired to sort of be able to mimic ideas and virtues. And like you say, you just felt different, you know, it's very, you know, different than who you usually are. And yet I think the book is excellent to read, to see how other people can try to pull one over on you.
For sure.
I remember I read a section to my class about how to start a cult because I didn't want them to fall into a cult trap. You know, it's important in this world to understand all the psychology behind, because a lot of people are power. I think I was always really naive to that. And this book definitely opened my eyes to what sometimes other people are up to. And then I think other books I've been reading lately have just shown that a lot of people are hurt, you know, and through that hurt and pain, they try to accumulate power, and they use these tools and these tactics. Like you said, they can be used for good or they can be used for evil. So I don't think that's like the book has to make you feel icky. It's like any of the laws can be used for good or evil. But I do remember really liking the book. And I think that in terms of education, I think it's really important to understand human psychology. So I think it was a good book about understanding human psychology and dive into history as well to look at some figures throughout the course of humanity.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I think all your points and comments are totally valid and true. I don't disagree with anything you said. There's so much noise of all these. There's 48 rules, and I'm sure there's 5,000 other ones. You know, I can't remember that. How do you remember like when to apply, when, where? This is like sales 101. This is my job, right? Like how to win friends and influence people. And like, I can't remember all the things that, you know, what to say, when to say, like Chris Voss's book, you know, Never Split the Difference. Yeah, that guy's had 10,000 hours of negotiating with hostages to understand exactly the subtle nuances of when to do what, when, you know, like, I mean, like, I don't have this. And like, just by reading this book, there's just no way that I will ever know what to do, when to do it, and do it right, unless I, you know, play this game forever. So like, for me, it just makes it easy just to condense it down to like, what can I always, people are going to do this stuff, but like, I mean, at the end of the day, who cares, you know? Like, I mean, like it's unless it kills me. I mean, you know.
Yeah, well, it's good to, I think, to be able to call out people with what they're doing so you can explain the situation to others. But you're right. I mean, I don't think like someone's like, oh, we're going to do these 48 laws. Like they sort of like end up their character kind of can be maybe like one or two can be like some part of their character, and it might be to like a detriment. And sometimes it's like, you know how like we all have qualities that end up sometimes being good, but then sometimes they end up like getting us in harm's way as well. So, Tria, what do you think?
So I'll tell you what I think. I'm gonna answer the questions, Chris. You know, how do you shield yourself from outside influence and stay true to yourself? And I think that for me is, you know, what I think is this book is great from that perspective. In order for you to stay true to yourself, you have to know how to avoid being in a situation where people can manipulate you. Because the thing is, the book is outlining a lot of these like where they are playing the power game, right? And if you sucked into the power game and you don't know it, you can't avoid it. When you can't avoid it, how it's going to divert your attention from the thing that you should be doing, from your virtues and your value that you should be living. So for me, when I read the book, I'm not putting myself into the first person say, okay, I'm going to use this power. I'm not saying I'm going to be trying to be this person to use the law to get up to the top and to follow these guys. I'm reading from a third person perspective. Oh, okay, this is what they did in this century, and this is what they did in that scenario. And for me, I'm looking from an outsider perspective. So I don't feel icky at all because I never even crossed my mind that I'm going to use these things to kind of get what I want. I say, I want to know that, hey, I should avoid these people. I should avoid, you know, getting to a situation where people are trying to manipulate me so I can stop it. Because a lot of times, we just don't know. I mean, you look at ourselves, like for me, it's like, we were talking about the Montessori workplace, right? The thing is, I wish I knew. I wish I had been part of the Montessori education growing up, because I went into my midlife crisis and I regret not having these kind of things because I didn't know. I didn't know the options I have. So for me, it's in order to be true to myself and to shield myself from outside influence, I have to know what I can do, and I have to know how to stop if somebody is trying to assert themselves into into what I need to do. For example, the people at work, right? They want you to work until you die, work from morning, from dawn to dusk, right? And never see your kids. And for me, I rebel against it because I knew that wasn't correct. So for my life, when I was little, until about 10 years old, I was a bad kid. I mean, I was a rebellious kid. And then from 10 until I was like 20, I was a perfect kid. I mean, perfect grades. Like I have like perfect attendance from 6th grade to 12th grade. Never miss a day, right? And for me, is I actually regret having to adhere so darn good to that particular, I guess, dogma or standard, just because to me that isn't helping me, because I didn't know. But if I knew, I wouldn't have done that. I would have done something more, like I would be more, it's okay that you can think for yourself. For my culture, it's like you're not supposed to think for yourself. You're supposed to think for others. You're supposed to not inconvenience anybody. So a lot of times when I grow up, I hesitate to ask questions because the culture tells me that I should not inconvenience anyone. Why am I to inconvenience and ask somebody, can you tell me how to get there? How do I do this? Can you show me how you did that? Can you show me the recipe or this and that? That to me is like I adhere to some dog myself perfectly because I didn't know, and that held me back. And so for me, this book is, yes, it's actually icky if you actually try to put yourself into the first person. But if you are from a third person perspective, I think it's a good book to know, to kind of have, like, your kind of like know how versus having like, hey, I'm going to implement and utilize it for my own gains. So like I said, you have the options. You can use it for good or you use it for bad, but when the option is at your disposal, you can choose. And to me,
Well,
that's better than not having to say, hey, I'm ignorant to it.
I was going to say, sometimes, ignorance kind of is bliss, like, if you don't know you're being manipulated.
No, I mean, when we talk about this, you wanna. I mean, we're talking about having, like, yes, in the beginning, in the first phase, ignorance is bliss, but bliss comes with its disadvantages. And then you go to the second part of the trilogy, where everything is becomes like, when you know too much, right? When you know enough without ability to do anything. Like in the beginning, you know nothing, right? So when it hurts you, you didn't know it hurts or didn't hurt so bad. It still hurts, but it didn't hurt as much. But then you
Right.
know something, right? You know enough, but you can't do anything about it. Then that's hurt the worst because it hurts the longest because you knew of advance and you suffer through it. And then you get to the second part of the last part of the trilogy where, oh, you have knowledge. Now you have the options and the ability to act on it. That is when you become better than the first two. So to me, you go like this and then you dip and then you can go up, right? And so
Yeah.
you have to get past the first two phases, but it still happens. Like whether you shoot yourself in the foot or you put a firecracker on your mouth and yeah, you know, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yes, ignorance is bliss, but it's not that cracked up to be, in my opinion.
I will say this: there's one huge important thing that I think with both How to Win Friends and Influence People and 48 Laws of Power, books like that, it's outcome based. Like it's about winning. And that's kind of what I don't really care. Like if you care that much about winning, like it says in the title, How to Win Friends and Influence People, like
the book
that's
is
not what I'm
basically
here for.
putting in competition.
Right, exactly.
Both book they say, hey, in order for you to influence somebody, you're basically inside of a game with among other people.
But wait a minute, we're all happy, healthy, adjusted people in general. Like we're all here by choice to have a great conversation because this aligns to what we care about, right? Nobody's manipulating anybody else to have this conversation. This is a part of something that matters to me, and it's going to matter to me whether you're manipulating me or not, So like that's my decision to come into this conversation, and that's why we all enjoy it, right? Like we all come into this knowing that we're doing something that aligns to what we care about versus trying to go, well, I'm trying to manipulate this whole scenario to get like a lot of followers and grow some money together, so then I can go do it, like, you know, the whole big strategy or whatever. When you're trying to play the game, I don't know, I just feel like you're never going to win come based versus just enjoying what you're doing, you know?
So I think you're right. I mean, it is for people like trying to play a game, and I think
how do you shield yourself from outside influencers and stay true to yourself?
yeah, well, I think one thing, I mean, I think just in terms of reading and education and teaching yourself and expanding your knowledge is great, because humans have stayed pretty much the same. So we have these authors, most of them older than us, who we read, and their take on how they've seen life play out is probably going to be somewhat similar. It's going to be different as like technology advances and everything and other things advances. But I guess how I stay kind of true to myself is, I think one thing I've gotten better at is making sure I'm reading, because I can get highly influenced by what I read. So making sure I read like peer-reviewed stuff from people, either myself or people who I admire, recommend,
right?
You know, not going off and reading like some rabbit hole things, because I think we are pretty highly influenced by what we take in, because things can in our society become so polarized. It's just as easy to read the Wall Street Journal as it is to read like a post from a bigot. In the human brain, we can think we know the difference, but when we're taking information in, we really don't know the difference that much. So I think that's important for myself.
No, I agree. So it's kind of like you're saying, like a balanced educational approach, I guess, just to kind of see the, you know, the bigger picture in general, but a bit of balanced approach from people that you can trust, you know.
Well, yeah, but also whether like reading about what the Republicans think, but also reading about what the, you know, Democrats think, you know. I think just that's being peer reviewed, but also reading both sides of the story.
I like it.
Yeah, I think one of my values is like individualism.
So well, there you go. Run with that one in terms of how would you be an individual like in these ancient courts? You know what I mean? Like how would you do that and still play this game? Like, or would you play the game? I guess here's the question: would you play the game?
I think, but me playing the game is shedding light on consciousness and mindfulness about what's going on in our surroundings. Whether it's like, that's how I try to educate our students, like what's really going on here.
Your principal is walking by and they're like, what the hell? You know, Snow, I was literally just writing about this morning, because I finished your Beta per Christus book or whatever, the aphorisms or whatever.
Yes.
And the one that I was writing about this morning was that I really enjoyed was the stuff that I learned on my own is the stuff that I always remember. And I was thinking about that Econ 368 class. Yeah, well, the thought that I was like, I was playing a game with myself this morning when I was writing this. I was like, 30 seconds, you know, pretend gun to your head. What's something you absolutely remember you still use to this day that you learned in school, K through college, like kindergarten through college? Name one thing. You got 30 seconds. Go.
Honestly, I think mindfulness and self-reflection.
You learned that in school?
Well, no, but like we had to write for like 10 minutes every day in English class at the start of class.
Ah, I love it. That's great. You did that in grade school or high school or
like 11th grade.
That's awesome. Well, good for that teacher for teaching you to do that, because I agree. That's awesome. What do you got?
I don't know how to smoke. I don't know my own. I just saw people smoke with a little thing, and I just basically go and grab some corn hair from the cornfield and wrap it up in some paper and then light it up and smoke it. And that's the thing I remember. It basically is I learned like things like that, you know, it's very vivid in my memory, and it basically tells me that I'm very creative in what I want. If I want something, I'm going to figure out how to make it, whether it's, you know, close enough or it mimics the same smoke. It's good.
I love it. The reason I was bringing this idea up was the one thing that I could remember from K through college, the only thing that I can remember was Econ 368, and the first thing that came to mind was 2 + 2 = 4, or it doesn't equal 4. And it was funny that I remember that, because that was actually the one class that, if you asked me at the time, I think I told you this, we lived together at that time, I was like, this is the dumbest class that I've ever been in my life, you know, because you spend your whole entire life going like, here's your curriculum, this is what we're going to do, this is the assignments we're going to learn today, you take your notes, you take your tests to prove that you learned whatever you did, you get your grade, and you move on toward whatever outcome it is. Like, this class had none of that. It was, here's a hypothetical topic, read something and come prepared tomorrow to share your thoughts and engage. It was about engaging, and it was about sharing with your classmates, discussing something, and I was like, this class sucks. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, man, that was like the only class that I remember, because that was the only time that I actually had to apply my own knowledge and my own thought to any course ever.
You got to be a part of the.
The only time ever in my entire education. That's the only thing I remember, really. I was comparing that to your magical learning journey of all being self-learned, and I was like, man, I could rattle off 50 things in the past couple of years that I've learned and applied to my life, because it's all been self-learned. Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this all up as it relates to this topic is like, you know, it's I don't know, I don't care what other people are doing. I guess at the end of the day, it's just not, it's someone always has an agenda, and I just don't care anymore. I only care about my own agenda, you know.
Yeah.
So go back to the question you asked Snow earlier. If you're in the 18th century and you're in the court, do you play the game? You're gonna have to play the game. The thing is, for me, it's like the option you have is either you are not inside the court, or you're inside the court and you have to play the game. You cannot not play the game. It's not possible. So you have to remove yourself, because if you don't play the game, basically they're gonna get rid of you.
Yeah.
So in order for you to
Depends if you have
survive and
house.
do your own thing, you're gonna have to say, I'm not in the court, I'm in the country somewhere, I'm living my own life, I'm chopping my own wood, I'm chopping on my own saw. That's my thing, is that, yes, you know, you can't say, well, I don't care what other people think or do. Yeah, you do, because they're going to get in your way of you doing what you want to do.
What if the court was founded on a bunch of people that just wanted to
That's not reality.
Some king could have walked in and, you know, changed the whole tone. Like they're the ones that made the rules for the game, you know.
And that's what, hence the law, hence the book. I mean, he's not creating a law. He's saying, this is what I see, this is what I observe, right? If you're in this situation, you're gonna have to deal with it this way, and this is how people are going to try to deal with you. So either you want to play the game or you don't. If you don't, right, what's gonna happen to you?
Well, then
They can use you as the you know, a lot of people, like in those days, right? They are looking for a person to pin the scapegoat on so they can get out. They can use you to take the guillotine for them. And like I say, you say, well, I don't care. Well, you're gonna get your head off, and you're the one that's not living your core values, because they use you, because you let them use you. And to me, that's why I think this book, and that book is not saying, hey, I created this law. This book say, this is the law I observed. This is what people have done. And so, yes, I think we have to be mindful of
book. I don't think that these scenarios didn't happen.
And it happened, and that's our human history. It's not like we can choose ahead, you know, and magic wand, and we just flick the wand, and you know, the king decides ahead, you know, no more laws, no more games, no more this.
There's a reason why there's no monarchs around anymore, you know, because apparently the game that they were playing wasn't good enough. People were sick and tired. People wanted to be individualism.
It just changed the way you call it. It's the same. It's still the same. It's no different. You look at China. You look at all the third world country. There's not a single person that say, "Oh, I'm the king," but they control everything. Same thing. Yeah. Even in the United States. I mean, you're talking about democracy. This is the extreme of these, you know, the rules of a monarch. But you have the same. The government up on top is deciding, okay, yes, I represent the people, but I have my own agenda. Can I align some of these objectives with the agenda that I have? And for the most part, the people who run for government offices, it's not because they really want to make changes for the good of the nations alone. They say, well, maybe I make some good of the nation, but I'm going to have to make law to help my friends or my company out first. That's first and foremost my priority. And then maybe along the way, I can make a world a better place or the country a better place. Yeah, but that's still a second priority to these politicians. And so to me, it's just a different name.
So that's a lot. That's a whole conversation, guys.
Awesome. All right, yeah.
Yes.
It's a pretty deep conversation in general. And it's not easy, but I mean, for me, I guess I have to always keep going back to, like, I just can't. I don't want to play the game anymore. Like, the only
you don't
game
have
I
to play the game. You don't have to play the game. That's my point. Is you know. When you know, you have options, right? Because if in the 18th century, you have the option. The only option you have is you stay away from the court. Then you don't have to play the game. But if you somehow get thrust into the court, and the king said, hey, you know, I want you to do this, and you say no, what happens to you? What happens to you if you say no? No, I don't play the game. I do my own thing. I don't need no king. What happened to you? You gonna
I didn't say you have to disregard society's rules. Like you still have to play within the framework of it. You can still play your own game.
That's play within the 48 laws. There's a law you playing in there. Like you playing
okay,
it.
So,
oh, you know what I mean? You're talking about
to be
not
fair,
outshining the master, for example, right? You're not outshining the king. Don't be smarter than the king, because otherwise you will get killed. Well, imagine if you're a great general or a great something or whatever, you great salesman. If you outshine the king, you're dead. I mean, that's one of the law. First law, don't outshine your master. Imagine Michelangelo, right? Michelangelo and you know, all these artists that has like very famous. Man, they say, well, I paint this Sistine Chapel for the Pope. Well, they say, hey, the Pope give me inspiration. You are the source of these masterpiece. It's not me. I'm just a vessel. That's how he's able to survive. Otherwise, you think Michelangelo is going to survive until this day? No. Leonardo da Vinci, the same way. They are very smart at what they do because they know how to play the game. They had to play the game. You can't say, well, I just come to me naturally and I paint this beautiful Sistine Chapel or whatever, and the Pope has nothing to do with it. No, you got to give credit to the king because you cannot outshine the master. Same thing,
well,
right?
Okay,
you are doing the same thing right now at Salesforce.
I was about to say that. I'm not.
So you're playing it now. You're telling me that you're not, right? So the thing is,
but you're right there, like 100% correct. But the truth is we're trying to build our own game, right? Like, so fine, build your own game is the answer then. Like,
right?
Build your own
you have
game
to know what
rules.
not to build. You have to know what not to build. You have to know what people are doing and how people think, so that you can control and have the option of controlling your own destiny. If you're building a new ecosystem, but you fall into the same trap because you're influenced by other people without knowing that you are building into the same flaw and the same laws that have been repeated in history. And because we don't know enough, we say, well, what happened when you don't know enough? You say, well, I guess, we can try it. Because we're talking about the learning by osmosis, right? There's nothing for you to compare and say, well, this is wrong. But now that if you read the book or you know the law and you kind of simulate through your mind and you think about it, and somebody say, hey, we should do this and should do that, then hey, I can compare this to what other people do in the past and say, well, maybe that's not a good idea. We should not introduce this kind of concept into the ecosystem that we don't want to have, because it's going to give you that. Because when you influence and you don't have any kind of reference to compare against, you will take it as the truth until you proven otherwise.
I'm not saying I don't think that people should read the book.
We should read the book.
Yeah, agree. You should always be learning, right? Sometimes you're going to learn shit that doesn't align to how you want to live your life, and that's an important lesson.
You learn what not to do.
I mean, like, most of life is about learning what you don't want to do, and like probably 99 times out of 100 learn the bad thing, and then the one time you find the right thing, like then you learn to go do that. But it took 99 other times to learn, because we don't fail fast, we learn fast, right?
And also, when you learn the thing not to do, when you found the right thing to do, it feels different. And hey, this is on the right path, and I know that I'm on the right path because it feels different.
You're not wrong.
So if I'm not wrong, what am I?
You're correct. At least in my view, you are aligning with what I would agree with, because to your point,
well, like I say, I agree with you. I agree with you. You have to live for your value. But that's the thing, how do I do that without people getting in my way? If I'm walking down the street and somebody's in my way, what do? I need to have options. Do I just tell him to go, step aside? Do I go around him? Do I turn around? What do? What are my options? That's my philosophy. I'm not saying, hey, I don't care, I'm just gonna walk through you. I'm gonna walk over that person because I don't care what other people do. To me, that's where I get stuck, because I need to know what are my options, and what I decide to is that space between a stimulus and your response is your free will to act, right? This is where I need my options. Because I could walk over him.
That's where I consult the values chart on that, So I said I feel powerful when I get put into a dilemma, and I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing because I'm gonna go this way. Like if somebody walks in front of me and they're like, hey, they block my path, and I go, oh well, I go consult in that space between stimulus and choice is your freedom to choose, right? Stimulus and response is your freedom to choose. Like I consult one law, and that's, does it align with the things that I say that are most important with me? If I was in a situation to be manipulated, like the only way that somebody could ever manipulate me is if they could really understand what's in my head and what really matters to me. And then at that point in time, we would be on the same alignment. Like I would be like, great, manipulate me all day long, as long as it's going toward the thing that I want. I don't care if somebody manipulates me more toward my purpose of living for my daughter. Like I want that, if anything, manipulate the shit out of me.
I don't know. I'm just thinking that, without the option, doing what you think is right may not be right. And that's the problem. It's like, how do I know this is the right value? We say, hey, I can take an offer from this company because they offer me this and that and the other that's different from Salesforce or whatever. How do I know which one's better? Because compared to Salesforce, compared to what you want, right? It may work out, may not. But that's the thing, is you don't know until you try it. But the thing is, you have a better chance of making the correct path if you have more thoughts into the actions and more knowing what people have done, right? Because it's not just you, right? When people give you an offer or a job or whatever, right? You have to know them.
Yeah,
because they cross into your timeline, into your own personal life timeline. You have to know how to act. Like, let's say right now, Salesforce is aligned with your core value. What do? You say, oh no, I'm looking at my core value, or do I live for two? Well, the thing is, you can't just say, hey, I'm gonna quit right now and I'm gonna, do whatever. I have to transition it. I have to say, well, how do I make sure that my wife is still taken care of? My second kid, my boy Luca, isn't taken care of while I live for two. So now you say, well, how do I do that? By, doing the company, you founded the company, but also trying to work at Salesforce to kind of like make that transition. And that's what you're playing. And yes, that's nothing wrong with doing that, because that is not harming anyone, right?
Yeah, but I'm not playing a game. Like
it's a game no matter what. It's just one of those things where you say, well, you have to exist in the world. You're gonna have to play a game, because right now you can't tell your boss that, hey, I'm building a company, so I'm gonna leave. Would you tell her that? Because you have to play the game. You say, well, she doesn't need to know.
Maybe. But here's the thing: is it's not a game, though. Like life isn't a game, in my opinion. Like life is either
the game, whether you like it or not.
It's like that's
no,
the game.
Are you on a quest? You're always on a quest. Right. If you exist on this earth, you are on a quest. You're questing for something, right? Regardless of what you know or not, you're on a quest. Regardless of what you want to call it, you can call it a game, you can call it a something, right? You are in this
you're
ecosystem.
Participating in something.
Exactly. You are a participant in life, right? And you can call it a game or call it whatever you want.
Games have outcomes, right? I don't think life have outcome. Like, I mean, it's, we don't know what the outcome of our life is.
But like you said, we're participating in something, right? Maybe if you say, hey, that's not a game, that's fine, but it's still calling something. You are a participant in one among many, many participants. Whatever you want to call that.
Participating in purpose. Yeah.
No, you're not participating in purpose. You're not participating in purpose. The other people are participating, but they don't have a purpose. It's not participating in purpose. It's you participating in something, right? It's just that you choose your purpose as how you participate. You understand? So for me, it's like,
I mean, that's a good point. I think this is a deeper topic than 48 Laws of Power, but I agree, it's an interesting topic. I think we should explore.
That's the point. Is that whatever your particular, I guess, lessons and concept you want to retain and to learn, the inspiration can come from anywhere. So the 48 Powers may, kind of like call out this kind of knowing people around you. You have to participate, because there's not, volunteer.
Yes, I 100% agree with. Everybody has to participate in life. If you're not participating, you might as well die.
You're not participating, you die. Right. You have to participate.
Right. Exactly. No, I mean, like, you literally have to. Like, that's the only requirement of life, is you have to participate. Like, otherwise you'll die, because if you don't use it, you lose it. That's anti-fragile.
It's like throwing you into the ocean and say, hey, don't swim. It's like, well, right, so you gotta swim.
Right, exactly. I am with you 100% on that one, for sure. All right, let's let you go back to your family. You're at the beach. I appreciate you jumping on for, it's fun. It just shows us all what your values are as well as ours, and the club any values. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this with us. But I don't want to take you away from your family any longer. Final thoughts, and we'll sign off for the night and get you back.
So final thought is, in order for you to live the value you want to live, you got to make sure you have options so that you know how to handle them when somebody gets in your way. Because if they get in your way, it's going to take away your attention from living your core value to deal with the thing. So how do I maximize my own path that has the most of what I want to do versus I have to deal with all these things that get in my way? Then I only live like maybe 60% of what I want to live, because the further 40, I'm trying to deal with the things in the middle of the road when I'm trying to walk across something.
I agree with everything you just said. I would personally rephrase it to say, learn all the things you don't want to do so you can learn the one thing you do want to do, and then just walk that path, and participate like crazy. Like that would
you got to
be how I would
participate. Yes.
Yeah.
It's mandatory that you participate.
You're right. That is 1% the foundational element of any stuff. Into what you participate is what we're talking about. And I'm saying,
so you participate, but
know
how you participate, that's up to you. That's entirely up to you, and you can control that.
Right. Exactly. And I'm saying control that by being really powerful, by following your purpose, your mission, and your values, and you'll never go wrong, in my opinion, because if you're wrong about that, then you're wrong about yourself, and there's a deeper problem there,
But at least you're wrong about yourself, right?
That's true. As I said, there's a deep problem you need to address if that's the case. Like if you know that you're doing something you think that you care about, and you find out, shit, I don't really care about this, then that to be addressed,
Then you're halfway there. You're halfway there.
Right.
Say, hey, that's not it. I gotta go find the other half, which is like, hey, now I know what I should not do. Well, whatever I do that's not that, it's gonna one step closer to the right one.
For sure. Well, that's learning, right? And that's great. Oh, I love it. All right, awesome, great discussion. Thanks for joining us live from the beachside today.
And I'll be back tomorrow from the beach too. So stay tuned.
Love it. Love it. The commitment. I love it.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. So question we can leave for everybody is, how do you shield yourself from outside influencers and stay true to what's important to you? So something to think about. Drop in the comments below, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Sounds good. See you.